We're snorting cap rates and shooting up cash flow here at Deal Junkies. Welcome back to Deal Junkies. I'm Gabe Johansson, back in the studio with Dane McKinney, even though he doesn't say much. He's quiet today. Hello, Dane.
A lot on the mind.
Trevor Howard. Trevor does say much. And again, our special guest, Joe Rinderknecht of Cowboy Capital. Thanks again for joining us, Joe. We want to deep dive into a couple of your deals, or maybe one of your deals. And we want to share with the audience maybe, let's start with your favorite. Do you have a favorite deal you'd like to kind of take us through from start to finish?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For those who've listened to the first episode, like the fourplex probably will forever and always be my favorite one, just because of how we were able to help that family, and both my partner and I on that, we made about $500,000 on that deal over a 7-year period.
While investing like $30,000. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. The best deal I've ever done to date. Right. I'd say that my favorite one to talk about is, so we bought this 54 unit, Missoula, Montana, September 30th, 2024. And that was also kind of about the time period where nobody was like doing any multifamily. But both Levi and I were really looking to find some deals at that time, because I just sold my headache deal. And so like I had all this brand new bandwidth, right, that I hadn't experienced in a couple of years. I was itching, ready to go and operate again. And what's crazy is like we told you before, like we know our markets really well. And so in all of these markets, we have like LoopNet and Crexy, like notifications set up to where it's like if a new deal pops up, like we get notified, right? And so this deal was actually a LoopNet listing, right? And I'd always believed that LoopNet is where deals go to die, right? Most of the time, if it's on LoopNet, that means the broker sent it to, his top dozen or however many VIP buyers, and then it's gone through everybody in the brokerage, and then it goes to market when they just can't find another buyer.
That's how it used to be. Mm-hmm. Not so much today.
Really mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyways, like I said, our competitive advantage in this market is we know the markets. And a lot of people that do multifamily, that are operators out of Salt Lake up to like here in Idaho, they're in Texas and Florida and Georgia and Ohio, right? They don't do a lot because the price per unit is just always much greater here than, going to the Sun Belt or, the South or whatever. And so this deal popped up on like a Thursday night, 6 o'clock, 54 units, built in 98 for $6.5 million. Immediately, we know that's a crazy good deal because we tried buying 101 unit and it traded for $300,000 a unit. Right? So it's like automatically we knew this was a deal. So I reached out to the broker right away, got the rent roll, got the T12. We quickly underwrote it through the night. And that night Levi and I underwrote it. We put an offer in that next morning for, I think 6.4, like $100K, it came on the market 6.6. We put an offer at 6.5 with, and then you guys are going to be like, holy crap, but like with $50,000 non-refundable earnest money day one, right? Back in 24, you weren't doing non-refundable, but we wanted to come out strong from the very beginning, right? So what we found out was the guy that was selling it, he built it in 98, right? So there's another pattern, right? 10 plus year owner. And he was going to sell this property to buy a ranch. And we're like, hey, cool. Like, it's who we are, man. And so we put the offer in. And so we were first to offer on it. And we were first to tour it. We jumped up there, went and toured it really quick with the broker. And it was a beautiful asset, right? And they'd done a really good job of keeping it updated. And to make a long story short, through that weekend, a dozen offers came in. And so I was actually up in Montana at one of my grandparents or my wife's grandparents' cabins in Belt, Montana. And so we were going back and forth negotiating like Saturday, because for some crazy reason, the seller decided to go on an African safari hunt the same day that he listed the property for sale.
That happens.
Nice.
Freaky to do that. And so anyways, like his time zone was opposite of ours. And so we were like 8 to midnight, negotiating back and forth. And so we ended up repricing because we knew it was such a good deal. We went up like another $25K of earnest money, and we took our price from originally 6.5 up to 6.8, right? Because we wanted to be really competitive with all these other buyers. And so at about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock Sunday, the seller gives us his verbal agreement. Okay, I will sell to you guys, right? He says, we'll do that. So then a broker was like, okay, great. I'll send you the PSA in the morning. Monday morning comes around, nothing. Monday afternoon, nothing. So both Levi and I were thinking the worst, right? Like, oh man, he got another offer. And he did. So at like 11th hour, a local buyer that had a local presence that knew the seller came in at $210,000 higher than us. So 7.1 million. And so the broker was like, do you guys want to increase your price? And we thought about it for a few minutes, and we just said, you know what? No, we were willing to walk away, from the deal. We're not going to go up again. What we want the seller to do is we want him to stick to his word, right? And we said, like, we grew up believing that your word is your bond, and he gave us his word. And we understand, like, we wouldn't fault him. $210,000 more is a lot of money, right? But we want him to hold to his word and, sell us the deal because he said he would. And he came back to us and was like, you know what? I like these guys' attitude. And he assigned the deal to us,
Wow.
And so it really just goes to show, right? Like, if you have those values yourself, like, it worked really well for us because we did everything we said we were going to do. We didn't renege. We didn't, we closed on time. And so it's like we did everything that we said that we would do.
Did the 7-1 offer have non-refundable up front?
Yeah.
So they were willing to do it too. Everybody saw. Why did they list it so low? Just to move it quick? Or
the thing that we've always thought was like, hey, this guy, he built it in 98. He has his own construction company. His basis in the deal, you got to imagine, is only a couple million.
Yeah.
Right. So he's making bank either way. Right. And his rents were super low. So it's like when you work with these kind of do-it-yourself landlords, like, they're fine just getting a paycheck every month. They don't need to maximize it like you and I need to do, when we're buying deals and bringing in investors. Like, we got to maximize it as much as possible. Right. His rents were $300, $400, $500 below market, and he was just happy. Right. So that's why, and the broker even told him, like, you should probably list this like 7 to 7.5. And he's like, nope, list it at 6.6.
It's a good seller.
And that one he did it at while he was on a freaking plane heading to Africa.
Yeah. So when you're buying this, you're buying it for like, you said 58 unit?
54.
54. So like 120 a door or something.
126 a unit.
Yeah. What does that rent for when you're buying it, and then what are you taking it to?
Oh man, we're just getting to the good part of why this is my favorite deal. The average rents were $783. There are 24 two beds, 16 ones, and 14 studios. Average rent $783 with majority two beds. Right, 90 to 95% of the tenants were month to month. And this is a really strong rental market. Like, their vacancy is like 3% right now. We went in and did a $385 increase across the board, plus a $70 like utility fee. So like a net effective like $450. We did that expecting to get like a 60% of the tenants to leave, and only 40% left. So we retained 60% of the tenants with like a $450 rent increase day one.
Wow.
Right.
You can't do that in Oregon anymore. We used to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of expense ratio is something like that operating at with that low of a rent on the front end?
I mean, they were pretty high. They were 40 to 50%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're at 31 now.
Oh, wow. So you guys are really efficient with it. Because when we see over here, for reference, like if we see a rent that's like $1,000, it's usually like 55% expense ratio on something like that. And then you can push it into the 40s, 30s once you start taking it to like 1,400 or so. But
Yep.
So your effective rent today is in the 1,200 range?
1350.
1350.
yeah.
Wow.
That doesn't include like we just increased the rub back. So like our average is like $80 rub back across the board.
So this is a true value add with just a management lift. It didn't need, when you're turning in those units, you're not dumping a ton of CapEx into it.
Yeah, we spent, we put about $13,000 a unit in renovations.
It's not bad.
What we did was, Missoula is a pretty expensive market. And so we brought a couple like contractor relationships out of Salt Lake. So we brought in cabinets, flooring, and paint. And so if we had brought in Missoula labor, we'd have been paying over $20,000 a unit. And so we replaced all the cabinets. So we actually, when we had 40% of the tenants leave, they all left at the same time. Right. So we had 20 units that were vacant, which was great. Because we bought it in September. We had to give tenants 60 days notice. So they all moved out like December 1st. We renovated all 20 units at once in 4 months.
And then you're ready for the leasing season.
Yep. Exactly. So yeah, we went and replaced all the cabinets, all the floors, paint, fixtures, faucets, all your accessories.
And you did that. Yeah. So you stabilized this last year. So what kind of debt did you take into that project? Because once you have 40% of your people leave, are you breaking any loan covenants or anything, or did your lender know you were going to do that going in?
The lender knew. So the one thing I think it could be a competitive advantage for people that are listening to this is like build relationships with local banks, right? Because even though we weren't local, we found a lender who knew the seller, who knew the deal intimately. And so he got more aggressive than any other lender or any other broker could get for us. So at that time, so we have a 7.25% interest rate, 2 years IO, 3-year term. So the third year is P&I. See, we had to put $200K in deposits with him, but like he knew, right, that year one we would be, kind of negative cash flow. And so that's what like that $200K was supposed to be used for, is for, like interest reserve, essentially.
So you saw a 50% lift in your, on 60% of your tenants. You had 40% of your tenants leave. So your rent roll didn't drop really all that much. I mean, your NOI, it suffered a little bit in that first year, but it did. But it wasn't really mission critical because you were pulling in so much more rent on the other 30 tenants. Yeah.
Even it was crazy as we were going through it, like even still with like 15% vacancy, like our NOI was already higher than like what our income was when day one of purchasing it.
Wow. That's a deal. So what's the delta on your basis versus what that project's worth today? What's your profit?
So yeah, we our all-in cost is about 7.5 on it. And we actually listed it with Northmark a couple months ago at 11.8.
Wow. So is that your play? Are you going to sell that and do a 1031, or why not just hang on to that?
So, I mean, the way that we strategized it, or we raised the equity, right, is we did all pref equity.
Oh, okay.
And so 7.5 pays off our investors, and Levi and I own it free and clear. So anything over 7.5 million, Levi and I take.
Okay.
So we sell at 11.5. That's $4 million that Levi and I split.
All right.
And so the strategy is we had the highest offer we got was 10.5, but we didn't take it. So we're in the middle of doing a Fannie Freddie refi right now. to get investor capital out, or get like about 90% investor capital out. And then we have the ability to build 32 more units on the property.
Okay, so you go to market. If we can take our quick hit and get some, have a capital event, we'll do it. And if we can't get what we want, we'll just ride the wave.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah. And really, we don't have to refi because our IO burns off in September, and we have enough income coming in now that we're still cash flow positive, even if we go to P&I. So really, we have till September of 27 that we have to do something.
That's a great place to be in, because you have options. You're positioned from strength to where you can make decisions.
Flexibility.
Yeah.
Well, and when you go to agency debt on that, you'll drop your rate by 2% now.
Yeah, I mean, the rate we're looking at is 5 and 15.
Yeah. So on that, when you're talking about getting 90% of their capital back, are you buying out some of those investors and some are staying in, or you're just recapitalizing 90% of like the total dollars?
We're going to give investors the choice. We have 3 investors that are the biggest check writers. We have an 800, a 400, and a 350. And so we do actually have a couple like 25K checks that we let in to just, build a relationship with new investors. But we'll give investors the choice if they want all of their capital out. Because I imagine the guy who did the most, he'll want to stay in, right? So he likes his position. He really likes the deal. And so we'll buy out. We'll let investors choose whether they want to be bought out entirely, or if they want to stay in for 10% of their money.
Yeah, so that's just a rolling 10% at that point, and then just as long as they want to go.
They'll still be getting like their 15% rate, average weighted, and the weighted average may change, right? But they'll still be getting that rate based off of the money still in the deal.
Yeah. No, that's a quick turnaround then. Create a $4 million spread.
It's pretty sweet.
Amazing what you can do without rent control.
Yeah.
Yeah. The sad part is Missoula is becoming even more liberalized. But I mean, that's been kind of to our benefit. Like, there are hoops that we have to jump through now, but the city is so strict on development that the deliveries coming online are even slower than like the national average, right? Like 1 or 2 projects coming online. So that's why rents are so high, is because there is no supply. Mm-hmm. There's no new units being delivered. And so that's why we were able to, like, even when we did that initial increase, $385, we were still $50 to $100 below market.
Yeah. That's why 60% of the people stayed.
Right now with where our rents are currently.
I've done that before, where I took a whole project and raised, before we had rent control in Oregon, and raised it to an amount where I was told everybody in the project would leave, and nobody left. And but what we found is there's sort of some fallout that comes later on. It doesn't happen on day one, but I don't know that this will happen to you. I'm just giving you my experience. Is it was about 6 or 8 months later, we started to have people leave, and it wasn't really because they could find something cheaper. It was just because the people living there just couldn't afford that rent, and so they just had to go.
The beautiful thing that we've found in Missoula is we haven't had that issue. Like, you kind of, that it starts to tell with your delinquency, right? And so like our tenants, we know that they can afford it because our delinquency has always been under 3%. Even that like first month of that increased rent across 60% of the units, we only had like 1 or 2 tenants that hadn't paid, but they paid up by the end of the month. Our delinquency there has been out of this world. Like, we've never experienced it in any other market.
What's the learning lesson there for listeners thinking about a guy that built the project himself, had a ton of equity, basis was really low, self-managed, kept his rent super low because he didn't have to. He was getting a good paycheck out of it. But those tenants, to me, were taking advantage of the situation. I mean, clearly they knew they were getting a much lower rent than what they could get anywhere else. Do you have any advice for somebody who's out there self-managing, who has that concept that I should keep my rent super low? I mean, at some point he probably thought he was only $100 low, and like, just keep him a little bit low. It's fine. We don't have any turnover. I don't want to deal with it. But then he ends up $400 low. Like, you miss that opportunity as you go along, and there's something I talk to people about often is like, are you running a business or are you running a charity? Because if you're $100 low, okay, that might be a business strategy. When you're $400 low, now you're really running a nonprofit. It's like, okay, if I wanted to donate $400 to each one of these tenants every month because that's in my heart what I want to do, if that's how you feel, great. Just know that that's what you're running. You're running a charity. You're not running a business.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if I was talking to owners, I'd say, I think my answer is like twofold. If I put myself in this seller's situation, it's like he probably knew the tenants pretty intimately, right? Most do-it-yourself owners do know the tenants pretty intimately. Like you said, they kind of have to have that mindset of it is a business, not a charity. So like their rent should at least go up with inflation. Right, because like his rents definitely weren't. So it's like you don't want it to be like pulling money out of your pocket. So yeah, having them, it's funny too. Like a lot of landlords don't understand like the rubs and other income too. Like there's so many do-it-yourself landlords that you see they pay for all the utilities, right, and they don't push it back to the tenants. So at a minimum, start rubbing back utilities, and increase your rents at least to market. On kind of the flip side of it too, it's like times have been tough. And so like, I honestly, like at some point in my life, I want to be that landlord who I don't have to maximize everything, and I can, still have really high quality tenants, have really high occupancy, and still give tenants a couple $100 like difference on rents to like what market is, just because I don't know. I've gone through a lot of tough times myself, and I've caught a lot of breaks from people doing similar things. And I think, I would like to be that guy one day where it's like, I don't have to maximize everything, for investor returns, because I'm going to own it for 10, 20 years. And my value in the property is more long-term tenants that I don't have to deal with.
Yeah, and if you keep your rents $100, $150 low, and you do the math on that, if you're owning it for cash flow, well, if I bump it to market and I lose X amount of tenants, 25% turnover a year, and then I've got to dump $13,000 into those units, what's that $100? It takes a lot of $100 to get to $13,000. So it's a different play than the equity play, and I'm trying to build a rent roll to get a cap rate, to get a refi, or to get the appraisal or sell. And so it's a totally different game once you're owning stuff and you're going to own it long term, and really, like you're saying, you're maximizing for investor performance and return, and to get the maximum value you can possibly get. Once you just say, hey, I'm going to hold on to this asset for the rest of my life, and I'm getting a nice check out of it every month, and I'd rather not have to do those turnovers, it's fine to keep your rents a little bit low. You just want to be careful. I guess the point I'm trying to make is you can have that mindset. I know my tenants, I want to take care of them, I'm keeping it a little bit low. But like you were saying, hey, I keep it $100, $200 below market, I'm doing a good thing for my tenants. The problem is the market will start to take off, and you're not paying attention to it because you're just looking at your own deal in a vacuum and going, I'm making enough money on that, I don't really need to pay attention to where the market's
It's more
going.
of a problem here too, because we have rent control.
Yeah,
so
but
if you fall behind, like you cannot catch back up.
So let me give you a warning right now. We got it first in Oregon, then it went to, I think, New York already has some other kind. We actually don't have rent control. We have rent stabilization, where we can rent it out at market if somebody leaves, but we just can't raise the rent past 7% plus CPI. But then it went to Washington and California, and this is going to spread. Like you're going to see this come across, especially in markets that are hot. Anything that's got less than a 5% vacancy rate across the nation, like you're talking about Missoula, right, where it's not developer friendly, it's hard to get units out of the ground. Rather than becoming developer friendly, what'll happen is they'll become landlord unfriendly, and they'll say, okay, well, rents are going up too fast, and so then they'll try to cap you and they'll try to put rent control. And now, there's precedents because there are many states and areas across the nation that are implementing rent control. So the more the liberal politics roll into some of these places, that'll be a risk. And it won't be a risk on your project once you have it to market, but it'll just be something to look for.
It presents different opportunity though too.
Yeah,
for
it
buying.
does. Yeah, it's a different strategy.
Yeah.
Just like Joe was saying in the last episode, like you have to just shift your strategies as the market shifts.
So Joe, who are the end buyers for that are looking at it at that 11 million-ish price after you've done all the value at that point? Like, why are they buying it? Why are they looking at that time?
Yeah, I'd say the end buyer is probably like the people who did offer us are like kind of smaller shops like us. We're not quite institutional grade purchasers yet, but smaller guys who may have a presence in other markets in Montana or in, people who have deals in Missoula. I think that's the other reason why we're trying to buy to build 32 units. It gives you more of that economics to be able to have a more like a larger, like a roundhouse, or some of these bigger property management companies come in and manage it, right? Because we're having to use a little bit more of a residential property manager there who just does, we just pay 7%, management fee. So it's a little too small to bring in like a much better property management company, because your payroll just absolutely kills your NOI, right? So that's why we're trying to add these units. And because right now, when you add those 80 units, then you have a bigger buyer pool.
Yeah. Have you built units before?
No, I have not built outside of doing the 24 to 32 unit stuff. No, I haven't built anything yet. What we're doing to kind of hedge the risk there, because that's kind of a new ball game, right? Development is different than value add. Is the broker that bought it from or that sold it to us. We're actually doing we have a 25 unit condo conversion deal in Missoula that we're turning from multifamily and doing a huge like $30,000 renovation on. He builds a lot of new stuff in Missoula. Like he does infill development, and he's been there for a long time, and he works with the biggest developer in Missoula. And so when we go to build these 32 units, Adam, our broker, is going to come in and partner with us on it. And the developer has already agreed to build it at cost.
Oh, wow.
We're hedging a lot of risks there.
Is the developer partnering as well then? Is that why he's doing it at cost?
He doesn't want to partner. He's just doing it as a favor to Adam, because him and Adam build a lot of stuff together.
What is at cost over there for a unit?
So around 200 a unit if you include land. But where we already have the land, we're looking at like 140 to 150 a unit for 32 one beds, about 650 square foot. Story.
What will those rent for at that point?
So the one beds, let's see, they will rent for, I got to look and see really quick. It's been a minute since I've looked at this, but that's right. That's where it is. So like our one beds right now are going for, like the fully renovated ones are going for $1,250. Market rent is $1,290. So for a brand new deal, we're looking probably closer. Like if we had it ready right now, probably closer to 1,400.
Yeah. Sounds right.
Maybe a little bit more than that.
Yeah, no, that's always sweet when you can pick up the extra land and add that value there. That's a thing we look for a lot. It's just awesome once you start getting into that development space. Because once I was with Gabe, and Gabe always told me never build anything. And then we found the right partner who was building it all, and we had just about done with the first. I built a duplex, I guess me and Gabe did, but doing this 66 unit build and just seeing the full cycle of it and how much value is created. And then we don't have rent stabilization then at that point for 15 years on it. You don't have as high as maintenance. You have the highest like tenant pool. Like it's been really cool to see.
So you want to dive into one that made you stay up at night? You already kind of told us about your 20 unit. I don't know if you want to dig into that, but what's your least favorite deal? The one, like to your point, you love those deals because they leveled you up and they helped you learn. But what you talked about your wife and you there were periods of time where it was like divorce might be a conversation. Like talk about some of the hard times before we wrap up.
Yeah, I think probably the toughest deal that I did was actually another duplex. It was in the early years. It was actually like a single family house. It was huge. It was like 4,000 square foot single family house that we thought had like the mother-in-law designation attached to it. And like we'd even talked to the city and they said like, yes, we will accept like the mother-in-law, like the apartment in the basement. And you need to get cities to write crap down because they don't stick.
Get it in writing.
They didn't follow their word there.
No, because we went in and did a really big renovation on that project. and we were pretty close to USU. And so we were able to find like a lot of extra space, and we made it like an 11 bedroom. That's what we ended up having to do because city wouldn't let us sell it as a duplex. Right. So we had to try and sell it as kind of a frat house. So like 11 bedrooms with individual, locks on all the doors, 2 kitchens. I mean, that one just sucked because it was just problem after problem dealing with the city. And then it was on the main thoroughfare out of town. So we had to work with UDOT because we had to fix one of our bridges. And it was just a royal pain dealing with that one. And at the end of the day, it's like I've never lost money on a deal, but like after like that deal, man, it drug on forever, and like we couldn't sell it for the longest time. So it was like 2.5 years. We walked away with like a $3,500 check in our pocket, and like an attorney bought it, and it's now his like office. So, because we had to like decrease the price so much, it's like it was going to be a banger of a deal. To sell it as a duplex, student housing, but just nobody would buy it. And this was what, 2018? This was just as I was getting out of the semi and going into property management. So yeah, 2018, 2019.
So what was your wife thinking then? Is that because that's an early on deal that she's seeing?
Yeah. She definitely wanted me to stop doing real estate and just get a state secure job at that point. There was a lot of conversations. I've had to tell her a couple times over the years, I'm sorry, but I'm unemployable.
That's usually how it works.
Dream too much. I've gone to a couple of jobs. Like I used to work at a lumber yard right after we got married. And I wanted so badly to do my own thing in real estate and entrepreneurship. It's just like, I just couldn't sit still. I couldn't just be content working a W-2,
You talked a little bit about how your threshold for stress has gotten much higher. Can you tell us how you manage your stress?
I work out a lot, go fishing when I can. And yeah, I think maybe a different way to answer your question is like I have a mentor now. He's more of like a business performance coach. And the best way that he taught me how to like manage stress is if you think of guys like Michael Jordan and Elon Musk and some of these like top performers in our world right now, right? Like the problems that Elon Musk has to solve, like that they would make us crumple up and cry, right? And so if you think about like the game that those guys played is they welcomed problems, they welcomed challenges because it increased their capacity for stress, right? Because what problem bugged you today isn't going to bug you in 5 years from now. Mm-hmm. And so it's just like anytime like a new problem comes up, I kind of think of it in that way. It's just like, hey, this is a new opportunity to learn and to, see what kind of man am I and how am I going to face this problem and, hit it head on instead of, crumble up and start crying, And I think like, especially too, like I'm a father of 3 kids, oldest turning 9 today, down, 9, 6, and 3. It's like this is a probably way more detailed answer than you wanted, but we're sorry, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but I feel like the world is like demasculating boys to like be like strong and brave and courageous. And so I think like when I talk to my 9-year-old, like he wrestles and plays football and so it's like he's going through his own like level of stress right now. And so it's like when I'm going through a tough time, I try and sit him down and be like, son, like I'm actually going through this right now. Like I need some words of encouragement, right? To show him that I'm human too, mm-hmm. Right? I'm not, my parents tried to be perfect in my eye, that there was nothing wrong and there was nothing wrong with their marriage. And it's like my wife and I have an extremely different viewpoint of how we parent. It's like we want our kids to see the struggle. We want our kids to see that we disagree. We want them to see that we work things out together, right? We don't hide anything, and like that we're going through a tough time right now. Like he's 9 now. He's been through all of the tough stuff with us, over these last couple of years when things were tough. So I just think like a lot of people think that like stress and anxiety, can kind of define us. And I just choose to not believe that stress and anxiety is even a thing, right? It's what you do with it is what matters, and problems are going to come. And so like, Michael Jordan, I love how his mindset, or like even the Mamba mentality, it's like in any game, both of those guys, right, are going to be like, give me the ball, right? Give me the ball. Like if you're too scared to do the layup, if you're too scared to do this, give me the ball. And so like, that's been kind of my mindset most recently, is like, this is the problem. Cool. Give me the ball. I'll solve it.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. How has it been? Because you're coming from such a small place, seemingly to me, where there's not a lot of people doing what you're doing. So you're like a lone wolf. Like there's not that many people like you where you're at. What is that like?
It's great. I mean, it was lonely on the way up. It's really been helpful having Levi, my partner. He lives real close, working with somebody that like, he's probably the first person that I've felt this much synergy with, like working together. But I love the position I'm in, because I love being a trailblazer, right? And showing people what's possible. Like, I don't feel like I'm like that big, big wig, or I just try to be raw and true and as unique, not unique. What's the word?
Authentic.
Authentic. Thank you. I try to be as authentic as possible and show people what is possible out there, and doing it in their own way, like giving people permission to go after what they want unapologetically, right? It goes back to my brother Clancy. He taught me that, and I'm still doing that today, right? So it's like, yeah, a lot of people aren't doing, but it's amazing what I've seen over the years. There's many examples that I could share of people that were reserved, that didn't take risks, that like from my wife and I's examples of going in and doing this, like they've gone and started their own businesses. Like an aunt of mine, she came from a really abusive household. She married my uncle, so my dad's youngest brother, and they I'm not going to say too much about it, but she started a little business local in Tremont, Utah, and she had an amazing exit. Like an exit that she never thought that she would ever get, just continuing doing the things that she'd always done. So break tradition, go after what you want. You don't have to fall in line with what everybody else says.
I love that.
I love it.
But before we wrap, you mentioned your brother Clancy again, and you told us the story in the last episode, but you started a nonprofit in his honor. Can you give us just a little spiel on what you're doing, and maybe people can get involved?
Yeah, so the nonprofit is called Tiny's Tribe. So Tiny was Clancy's nickname, and Tribe means community, right? Kind of your all-encompassing people around you. So from this accident, right, like I always say that I would not be who I am or where I am today if it wasn't for the community and the people who stepped in and helped pay for like my hospital bills, for Life Flight, for my grandma, for hospital or for funeral costs. Sorry. I think I probably lost a lot of sleep from the amount of people that came and just made sure that my family and I were okay and we're moving forward, right? And so when you go through tragic incidents like that, where you lose a best friend or a spouse or somebody that you tie your identity to, right? It can completely shake your world. And you usually have two choices. It's one, you curse God and you go down a very deep, dark path, right? I know people who've done that. Or you can take everything good from it and move forward, right? There's kind of a quote that another mentor taught me is like, no matter the outcome, declare it perfect, So I kind of had to figure that out in this situation, right? It's like, yes, I lost my brother. Yes, I lost my grandma. But what good can I, bring from that? And I became a better person, and I unapologetically went for what I want. But like for the nonprofit, what we do at Tiny's Tribe is we help like families in our local neighborhoods and our communities that have been in some kind of tragic incident or accident that resulted in death or severe injury of somebody in their family. And we help them in 4 main ways, and 3 of them are just the necessities of life, right? First being like money to go buy groceries, money to just, like, if you lose a breadwinner or a breadwinner is injured, right, you got to be able to survive somehow, right? So capital preservation or just financial needs. Second is food. So what we've done before, we partnered with like our local farm bureau and like local ranchers, and we've given away half of beefs and like half of porks, and so for some families, like that'll last a year, a half a beef will, right? So we partnered with like meal preparation companies where we'll go give like a whole month or 2 worth of like freezer meals. And then third is shelter, right? So we've gone in and partnered with a group out of Salt Lake where we've gone and renovated full houses for families, kind of not like extreme makeover home edition, but just a much lighter version of that, where we'll find a family and we'll go do what they need, give them an upgrade. Or, what we've simply done is built wheelchair ramps or fix decks or do what's needed just to make life a little bit easier, right, in their home. And then fourth, which I think is actually the most important, is mindset. If we can help people walk out of that incident with an optimistic look on life and a desire to move forward and become a better person and to find, somebody to help, like that's our ultimate goal, right? We want to make life as easy as possible as these people are going through the recovery or grieving process. And then when they come out of it, that they have an optimistic look on life, right? We're trying to get people to, come towards the light, lean on God, lean on us as a community, and, become a better person. Because I became a significantly better person because of this. And I'll say, like, yes, I'm sad, and yes, I wish my brother is still here, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to take the event and make the most out of it.
I love that. Truly honoring his life.
Yeah.
Joe, it's been amazing having you on. I hope to do this again with you and get to know you more. Maybe we'll visit you one of these days.
Yeah, I do. And I need to come out there and see you guys.
You got any horses?
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Of course he does, dude. He's wearing a cowboy hat right now.
He's a roper. I don't know. I've seen some people with cowboy hats.
I guess I got to wear a cowboy hat sometimes. I've never been on a horse.
Yeah. I'm not the guy that's the all hat, no cattle.
He's right there.
That's me, yeah.
All right, Joe. Hey, thanks again for joining us on Deal Junkies. Joe Rinderknecht with Cowboy Capital and Tiny's Tribe. If you want to get involved, that's a really great cause. If they want to find you, they can reach out to you on social media, email you. You said you're Joe at cowboycapital.us. Is there a way they can find Tiny's Tribe? You guys got a website or anything like that?
Not yet. So I'm just getting it up and going again. Right?
Okay.
I haven't done a lot since the middle of 22, right? Because we talked about, but like Deal, I just couldn't do the nonprofit and try and keep a deal alive. So I'm finally at a place where I'm getting it ramped up again. So we'll be helping families this year. So
good. Well, if you want to
reach out to me on the socials, we do have a Facebook and an Instagram page for Tiny's Tribe, but there's not much on there. But just hit me up on Instagram, LinkedIn, or email me if you want to learn more or, donate. We're a 50C3, so any like donations or whatever, can be used for your taxes. So just hit me up on my Cowboy Capital email.
Awesome. Joe Rinderknecht, Cowboy Capital, thanks for joining us. We are the Deal Junkies. We love you guys. Please share us with someone you love, and we'll see you next time.